Hey everyone, it's Nikki from the Sicilian Scholars, and today we're taking a look at the 2025 film After the Hunt. It is a it is an Amazon MGM Studios film, so it is currently streaming on Prime Video. The film opens with the words, "It happened at Yale," and hit the mic, so I apologize for that. Along with those words is the sound of a clock ticking, and it's a pretty loud ticking clock. And when the film actually opens up to Alma and her husband in their apartment with Alma getting ready to leave, the ticking is so loud we don't hear what they are saying to each other, which actually it's very significant within the film itself. Within the film as a whole, that ticking, that sound, the sound that makes it hard to hear things. And then the ticking also shows up when there are emotional or very significant parts within the film. And I really enjoyed that whoever thought of that, they were a genius. And when you watch the film, you'll actually see and understand why that was a genius part to put within the film. So as I mentioned, this is what we have. Now we have three main characters in this film. We have Alma, who is a professor of philosophy. We have Hank Gibbs, who is the assistant professor of philosophy. And then we have Maggie, who is a student of Alma. And on this one night, Alma is having a get together with her students. And we have some students in the kitchen. We have some in a side sitting area talking. And then we have Maggie. Well, we do have Maggie. So we have Maggie in another smaller talking room that includes Alma, Hank, Fred, who is Alma's husband, another lady, and a few students. And they're talking about a specific subject in philosophy. And during their conversation, Maggie excuses herself to go to the restroom. Alma says, don't use the main bathroom. We got something going on in there, but use the guest bathroom. So Alma makes it like she got a trek. But Alma goes to the guest bathroom and she notices that there's no toilet paper on the spool. And I believe that's what that's called. But there's no toilet paper there. So she goes looking for it. She starts underneath the sink. And then she goes over to the cabinet, and the cabinet is like three tiers. And when she gets to the bottom one, she finds the toilet paper, but it's towards the back of the cabinet. And while she's reaching for it, she notices that there's an envelope taped to the bottom of the shelf. And being curious, she takes the envelope down, she looks inside, and there is a picture of a man. There's another photo in there. I couldn't make it out. Maybe I missed something, but I couldn't make it out. And there's also a cut out article in there as well, a newspaper article. And we don't know anything about the article. We don't know what it says or what it's possibly about, because the way the camera showed it, we only see we only see Maggie looking at this article. And she's looking at the picture of the man. And while she's doing so, she hears somebody coming down the hallway. Obviously, they're going to the restroom. She hears somebody coming down the hall, and she starts putting everything away. But before she puts the envelope back up on the bottom shelf, underneath the shelf, before she puts the envelope back in the cabinet, she takes the article and she keeps it. And then she puts everything else back and she does whatever she has to do. So now it's a little bit later and we see that everybody is now leaving, and the two people left to leave is Maggie and Hank. And I believe Alma asked Hank if he would walk Maggie home, and Hank says yes. So they're out in the hallway waiting for the elevator to come, just to tell you how much money Alma has. They're out in the hallway and Alma closes the door and she listens to them because they're actually out there. They're laughing, almost making jokes, and they're just laughing out in this hallway. The next morning is when everything begins to change. The next morning, Maggie doesn't show up to class, nor does she call Alma or she text her. This immediately creates tension because her behavior has suddenly changed. And we can tell by Alma's kind of reaction when her and Hank go to this bar. It's called Three Sheets, which I absolutely love the name. Her and Hank go to Three Sheets after work, and they're having drinks and they're talking. And that's when Alma says that she hasn't heard from Maggie all day, nor she has received any texts. And Alma's a little concerned because, as I mentioned, this is out of character for Maggie. And so they're talking, and then when Hank leaves, Alma has she gets the check and she leaves and she goes home. And when she gets to our apartment, she sees that Maggie is there, and Maggie is soaked and she's soaking wet. And Alma offers her to come in, but Maggie refuses. And so they start talking. They begin their conversation sitting on the bottom of these steps. Maggie begins to tell her that yes, that Hank did walk her home, but he had asked for a nightcap. And Alma said, or not Alma, Maggie said, sure. So she invites Hank into her apartment. They have this nightcap. And then she tells Alma that Hank ended up making inappropriate remarks towards Maggie. And, I think she says, she's trying to stop him or something, but he keeps doing it. And then he starts getting more physical with her, with Maggie. And of course, Maggie doesn't want it. So she's trying to tell Alma what Hank ended up doing, but she won't say the actual words. And Alma's saying, she needs to know. She needs to know exactly what happened. Now, first off, Alma and Hank are good friends, especially with Hank being a assistant professor to Maggie. So they have a good close working relationship. And you can also tell that before she meets up with Maggie, you can tell that Alma and Hank have a good relationship, period. They seem to have a really good friendship. So obviously Alma is very shocked by these allegations from Maggie. And as I mentioned, she needs Maggie to actually say what happened, but Maggie keeps dancing around the word until Alma had to force her to say what happened. And that's when that's when Maggie says that Hank had raped her. And of course, Alma's shocked. Now, she is, as I mentioned, she was shocked about this, but it was more like she's shocked, but she's not completely shocked because she doesn't know the whole story that Maggie is about to tell her regarding Hank. But when Maggie actually tells her what Hank did, now the full, what do you call it? Forget the word, the full something all of a sudden hits Alma, and she is completely shocked. And now we have a dilemma. Well, not us, because we're watching it, but now there's a dilemma with with Alma, because Maggie's her student, and Alma really likes Maggie, and Hank is Alma's friend. Now it's the next day. You know how movies are. It could be 2 days later, but the way they showed it, it seems like it is the next day, and Hank has asked Maggie to meet Maggie. Hank, if I say Maggie in the film, just say it's Alma when you hear the part, because I get so confused. But Hank asked Alma to meet him at this Indian restaurant called Tandoor. And you can already see that the shift in their relationship has changed by the way that, I should mention that Hank is actually outside waiting for Alma. But when Alma shows up, there is a distance between them when they're standing in front of Tandoor. When they go inside, Hank does tell her what happened. He admits that he did actually walk Maggie home, and that he did ask for a nightcap, and he says he knows exactly that it was wrong for him to do that. And I think even Maggie, even Alma says to him, why did you do it? That's wrong. His purpose was to try to get information out of Maggie. He was hoping that being off campus, having a drink, and possibly being more relaxed, that Maggie would admit that she had plagiarized her dissertation. So before I get to that, let me just backtrack a little bit. So when they're in the apartment, Hank is telling the story. So he says in their apartment, he does ask for a nightcap, as already mentioned, but he says he was hoping that it might loosen, make Maggie feel calm and relaxed, and that because he tells Alma that he had caught Maggie cheating twice. The first time he caught her the first time he caught her cheating, he decided to let it go. The second time he caught her cheating was with her dissertation, and he was hoping that she would confess to it, because he did ask her, did you plagiarize your dissertation? Instead of answering her, Maggie stands there with an extremely cold, icy calmness on her face, and she says no. Again, this is Hank telling us the story. So as I mentioned, he's telling Alma this information, but we learn from this conversation, we also learn that now the university wants to talk to Alma because of this allegation that Maggie brought against Hank, and Hank is associated with Maggie. Now Maggie is involved in all of this. Now we have a few important details. One has to do with Maggie. Her family is really rich and they have donated a lot of money to this university. So this shows power, influence, and politics is thrown into this situation. Alma being very concerned about everything because she has the friendship with both of them, for Hank and for Maggie, that she decides to go to the Dean of Humanities and tells him that she doesn't want to be involved in this because of the conflict of interest. And he asks her what is the conflict, but we know what it is. It's her connection to Hank and her connection to Maggie. Then later that day, we see Alma is at a lecture and she is towards the front door and she's there with the food is. And then Hank walks up and she's kind of shocked to see him there. Then when Hank walks away, Maggie comes in and now Alma sees Maggie and Maggie tells her that she has decided to press charges against Hank. And she is asking for Alma's support with this, meaning that she would like Alma to testify on behalf of Maggie. But Alma says in a very respectful way that she can't do it because she wasn't there. She doesn't know exactly what happened that night. All she knows is that the last time she saw them, Hank and Maggie were happy and they were laughing and joking around with each other. So she can't go in there and falsify something that she knows nothing about. And now we've gone into another issue with not only paranoia, because Hank is paranoid because he actually saw Maggie and Alma talking, but then we have Maggie who's already probably in a state of panic because now the school wants to talk to her. And even though she has gone to the dean and has to be kept out of this, we know that's not going to happen. And then we have Maggie, because the only person that knows what happened in that apartment is her and Hank. And because Alma will not testify on Maggie's behalf, this is going to cause friction between Maggie and Alma. And this whole thing becomes a horrible mess. It is a hot mess. Later, we learn that Hank has lost his job and he gets mad at Alma because he feels that Alma could have actually saved his job. So now we're looking at power. He feels that Alma has enough power to have stopped him from being fired, but Alma doesn't have that kind of power. If somebody wants to fire, if the university wants to fire him, they're going to go ahead and fire him. She has nothing to do with their decision. So then we have that part. And then we have themes within this film. So I'm going to go ahead and refer to my notes because there is a lot of them. So we have power and influence. We have power and influence with regards to Maggie because of her parents. They're rich. They donated all this money to this university. And because the university doesn't want to lose the funding that they are receiving, it really makes you wonder how much is the university going to do. But we do say they did something. They fired Hank. Then we have manipulation on the part of Maggie, and that's something you would have to actually see within the film as a whole, because it does happen throughout the film. From the time that Maggie shows up at Alma's house and tells her about that particular night, throughout the movie, we see Maggie being manipulative about everything. We have trust versus perception, which is easy. It's like, well, trust. How much does Alma trust Hank? Because I don't want to say later. I don't want to give it away, but how much does Alma trust Hank? From the previous scenes, before this whole thing came out, we see that Alma and Hank had a really good relationship, a very close relationship, that, they would go out to drink and just laugh and have fun, and that was it. They seemed like really good friends. But we have perception because of what Maggie has told Alma. All Alma knows is what Maggie has told her. So there's her perception. Did Hank actually do this? She doesn't know. Alma's only given her a perception. Maggie has given Alma her truth, which turns into Maggie. I wish I can get these names right. I'll be a terrible witness, so don't ask me to be a witness to anything you guys get involved in if you get involved in something. Maggie is telling Alma her truth, but Alma can only have her perception of Maggie's truth. And then we have academic politics. Again, we go back to Maggie and her parents and the money. And then we have Alma saying, hey, I don't want to be involved in all of this. I wasn't there. I don't know what happens. Plus, I have connections to both people, and she wants to stay neutral, which she should stay neutral. She wasn't involved in it. Then we have moral ambiguity. You guys know I have functional neurological disorder, so my words are goofy, but you get what I'm saying. And that takes place after Maggie tells Alma what happened. We have reputation and public image. And we have gender dynamics, and we have emotional isolation. And all of those take place throughout the entire movie. Now we're going to go into symbolisms. We have the ticking clock, which represents pressure, guilt, and consequences. And as I mentioned, the clock ticking shows up at certain parts in the film where we're dealing with strong emotions or there is something significant is going to happen. And as I also mentioned, I love that the clock is the first sound we hear in the film. We see the writing and then we hear the clock. So it's perfect how that led into the film itself. And then we have rain is using to reflect emotion. It's heavily and it's instability. Then we have physical distance between characters. We have the distance between Alma and Maggie, and we have the distance between Alma and Hank. And then we start having the distance between Maggie and her husband. All these people that are involved that you thought were cool with each other or loyal to each other, they start distancing themselves. So it's almost like if they're in a circle and they're having this paranoia. So they're looking at each other. Who's doing what? What's somebody else up to? I don't want to be involved in this. Why am I here? What are you doing? What are you doing? It's all of this. And that's another part I really enjoyed about the film. Just a lot of symbolisms. Then we have the hidden envelope, which obviously the hidden envelope with information. So the envelope being closed is showing that information is being, and the envelope wasn't sealed. Now, if it had been sealed, then we would have been like it's almost like a sealed confession in a sense, or sealed information that is pertinent to everything involved. But it wasn't sealed, it was just taped to the shelf. But still, with it being in there and obviously Alma forgot she had put it there, it shows that she has hidden secret. And then later we see Alma burning that envelope and burning the pictures, but she forgot that article, that clip from a newspaper, was actually in that article. So she's forgotten all about that. And we also noticed that even though she thought she threw everything into the fireplace, she did, until she notices that one particular photo from the envelope actually fell out and is sitting on the ground, so sitting on the floor, and she just kind of looks at it. And then we have the university represents a system of power and protection. So the power is that, my cats are so adorable, the power is the power that the people in the university have. Even the professors, even though they may not think so. As I mentioned earlier, Hank thought that Alma should have protected his job. But Alma doesn't have that kind of power. Then we have the Dean of Humanities. The Dean of Humanities can decide should they go forward and bring Alma into all of this, or should they go ahead and let her go? And this becomes, you can tell this is going to be a dilemma. But then Alma does something really stupid later on in the movie. And I was shocked that she did this, but everything will make sense with everything that has happened and is going to continue to happen. You'll see why she did what she did in a sense. I saw why she did what she did, but we'll see how you guys feel about it. Now, for the last part, we're going to talk about my personal comment on the film. The movie creates tension throughout. It starts out slowly, and this is what I like about, I'm going to call this a psychological film. This is what I like about films like this that but move slowly until it's like, move slow, something happens. Move slow, something happens. Move slow, something happens. But each time it's moving slow, it's actually moving slow and heavy because things are starting to build up. The snowball is starting to grow and grow and grow until everything comes out. We start learning about Alma a little bit more. We learn about Maggie. We learn about Hank. And then we find out that as I mentioned, the paranoia, one of Maggie's friends, I forget her name, but she's like a counselor. I believe, yeah, she's a counselor. I think she's a counselor at the school. I can't remember. I don't care. But she is a counselor, and we learn a little bit more about her and Maggie and Alma. Not anything bad. It's just the connection that now this lady has with Alma and this whole situation that's going on. And then we have people that aren't being fully trusted. We, as the viewer, even though we see everything that's going on that the other people can't see, we are starting to doubt everybody because we're not sure what's going on because we have different viewpoints of everything. And we start with Maggie with her viewpoint of what happened, which is her truth. We have Alma's viewpoint, which is the story that she's hearing from Maggie. She has another viewpoint from the story she's hearing from Hank. So she's at a crossroads. She doesn't know what to do. And she wants to kind of side with, I don't know if she really wants to side with Maggie, but for some reason she really doesn't trust Hank, which was really odd because, as I mentioned, you see that they are very close, that they have a very close relationship, working relationship and outside of work relationship. And for her to almost turn on him instantly is really strange because we have that blocking scene where we can see the distance between each other, whereas they were really close to each other emotionally and mentally. But now we see the physical distance between them, which shows now they are now distanced emotionally and mentally. And then we have the atmosphere. The atmosphere feels emotionally cold and almost entirely, wait a minute, it's emotionally cold, I'm terrible at my notes, and almost the entire time. Wait a minute. I was emotionally cold almost the entire time. That's what I meant to say. And it is. There's no warm feeling in this because the subject matter in the film doesn't allow for warmth and calmness and have everything smooth. You know, you can have some parts smooth, some parts not. It just becomes, as I mentioned, where we have a big scene or a big thing pop up and we have not the smoothness. What did I say earlier? It doesn't go from one big thing to another big thing. We kind of have it just go in parts, but the in-betweens grow more and more and more. And it's just a movie to see. You guys, I really recommend this film to you. As I mentioned, it is on Prime Video. It's called After the Hunt. Yes, After the Hunt. I hope you enjoyed this film. And I know I apologize for that. I know I always say it at the end of my videos, but I do have functional neurological disorder. So some of the things that happen, you know, when I'm making these videos seem a little off or something. That's the reason. I make no apologies. It's something I have to live with. And I feel I'm doing a gosh darn good job of it. I think I already said it. I hope you enjoyed this review. I really enjoyed watching the film. And I was anxious to get on it and do this review for you guys. So there you are. And as I always say, I wish everybody a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening. Yes, depends on where you are. Ciao.